everybody. Welcome back to the Elevated Feminine podcast with your co-hosts here. I'm Nicole, and we have
Jen
in the house. We're here today with another empowering episode and empowering and inspirational guest. We have Diane with us here, and Shebilla, right? Shebilla.
Right.
Perfect. So Diane is a passionate advocate for women's health through all of her offerings. She brings a depth of experience as a menstrual awareness cycle coach, a yoga teacher, fasting guide, fertility and Lomi massage therapist and teacher, and energy worker. And a friend of mine that I did yoga teacher training with, we just kind of realized before coming on that it's been about 10 years, which is
Wow.
a whole lifetime sometimes. So we're really excited to welcome Diane here and for her to share her love and joy and passion for what she does. But I'm going to turn it over to her and let her do a better introduction of herself. So Diane, welcome.
Welcome, Diane.
So
lovely to have you here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be talking to you today. Nicole, I don't know if I can make my intro any better than you already did. I mean, I'm listening to my own intro and I'm thinking, woo, that sounds pretty good.
You wrote
it does.
Yeah.
Diane, why don't you start off by sort of giving us a history of sort of what it is you do and how you kind of got to where you are, because when we first met each other, you weren't doing quite as much, and so your business, including the dreads, you didn't have dreads when we met last time, and now we both have these beautiful long dreads.
Yeah.
So how about we just start with where did everything, the evolution of your business and your practice start, and how did you get into everything? Was yoga your first sort of dabble into it?
Yeah, that's right. But actually, everything started with the birth of my son 13 years ago when I became a mother. This is when I stepped out of the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday world. After maternity, I didn't go back to my job, and I was always working, but I was a childminder for a while. That gave me the opportunity to be with my boy and have other children around, and made it possible for me to financially be secure. And then we met in 2012 at the yoga training. It was just for me, the yoga training. I needed to have a little break from motherhood. I was on my own with my boy. He was only 2 at the time. But the yoga training was just for me, really. I didn't think I would be doing anything with it. I didn't know where this was going. And I actually didn't do very much with it at the time. But my boy grew, and I grew with him. And I found myself 3 years later in a women's circle. And the circle was called Love Your Belly. And this was all about menstrual cycle awareness and how to embrace our power center, that is our womb sitting in our belly. And this was all like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I got really insights. Everything got woken up in me. Yeah, and this is when it started for me to transition into the work that I'm really doing now. So I looked into how I can work with women, and I again sought a body work course, fertility massage / womb therapy. But again, I didn't really think I'm gonna do much with it. For now, it was just for me because I had my own trauma to work through. But then from there, when it was my case studies, I had to do case studies, and I asked random women, not friends necessarily. I made an announcement, and I did my case studies. They found it really beneficial, and straight away, actually, it went so quick that I now was a massage therapist. really quick. It went really quick. And I did then more trainings in massage, holistic body work. And the yoga came in when I did another training, and it was womb yoga or womb therapy yoga. And this is when I could really see, oh, okay, now I can weave my yoga, my approach to yoga all together. And I started working with women. And I remember I was volunteering in the beginning. Yeah, and this was it. And then going further, so this is first it started with body work, then yoga, and then through the conversations I had with mainly women coming into my door. I work with men too, but mainly women. I realized, whoa, hold on. I mean, it's not then that I realized it, but it became so much more clear to me. I'm not here to fix you. I can't fix you. You need to do the work yourself.
Yeah.
And we can chat only so much, and I can give you self-care practices, and I share as much as I can. But if you don't do the work and you keep coming back to me week after week, I feel a little frustrated. So for me, the biggest impact I found that many of us we can do that affects our health is with food. That's when the training I trained as a fasting guide. And yeah, I've been doing 1 week during lockdown. I've been doing 1 week fasting weeks, not with zero food, not just water fast, but alkaline fasting. I made it. Yeah, so I have this approach as well to an holistic, healthy living lifestyle.
Beautiful.
Wow.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. It just sounds like at one point that you really made that felt holistically, we'll call it, true, even with me in business coaching. And I'm sure Jen would agree with Pilates classes and the work that she's doing with her clients as well, is that if you don't do the work part, if you don't do the work, you can't get the results that you want. I can't fix you. Because the reason I love that so much is it's such a powerful statement that doesn't just apply to health and wellness. It definitely applies there. But I find it the same is kind of why I turned to business coaching instead of relying on graphic and web design, because the problem was is people wanted me to build their websites like their websites were going to fix their business. And
yeah, I like that.
Right. And it was, no, a website does help, but you do have to actually do the work of building your brand and bringing your brand voice forwards and putting all the pieces of your business in the way that you want it to go. So based on who you're speaking to and who you want to work with. So it's not a matter of, just, okay, so I'm going to go get a website in this example, and it's going to be the answer that I need and people will come. Well, no, you still need to do the work. You still need to learn how to manage it. Otherwise, somebody's going to always have to do the maintenance. You still need to learn how to find clients because your website's not just going to magically produce it for you. So I love that because it's just like essence of life, right? Like if you don't put the work in, nothing changes if nothing changes.
Exactly. Exactly this.
I love that so much. So it's, that's great. So tell me then, you started working with women and you really dropped into that aspect of, okay, let's empower you with tools and with skills and with, routines or these different prescribed actions that people can take to help heal themselves. How did you bring in the menstrual cycle aspect of your business, and like how does that work in with healing the work that you're in, the way that you're doing?
So most of my clients at the beginning of me working, and even maybe still now, are women either on their fertility journey or with issues like endometriosis, PCOS, heavy bleeds, painful periods. Most of my clients are like this. So when they come into my treatment room, and pretty much the first question I ask them before we go through my consultation form, where are you in your cycle? I need to know, where are you in your cycle? And if most of them, with the issues they are having or the journeys they are on, don't know where they are on in their cycle, then we need to start the whole thing somewhere else. This is so empowering, knowing where we are as women in our cycle. So it started from there, and I learned it myself from what I mentioned earlier, finding myself in this workshop and sharing with other women. And I started to have a menstrual cycle chart, and I used to do this for like 3 years, months after months, and I was folding my papers in a folder, and it was really useful to me. There were times when I knew on day 23 of my cycle, avoid any heavy talks with people that you know in any situation could go a little wrong, but this day, no chance. And other times I discovered, whoa, okay, actually, if I manage the knowing of where I am in my cycle, I can navigate my social life a little better. I'm no longer this flaky friend who steps away or, oh, sorry, I'm not feeling it today, because now I know. The week before my period, I keep pretty spacious and I just do the necessary things like work-wise, but everything else has to fall a little away from my schedule. So me then passing this knowledge on to women, sometimes they really were like, whoa, this is really working for me.
Wow, that's powerful. So Diane, I'm super curious to know how, so I've done some courses in the past that described how following your cycle can help enhance how you show up in your business and work and in life. And so I'm super curious how you weave those teachings into, because I know you do retreats and you do women's circles. So I'd love to know how that sort of gets woven together. Like, how do you do this kind of work in a group setting?
Right. Easier. So the retreats and menstrual cycle awareness workshops are two different things. The retreats are about fasting. I don't talk about cycle awareness unless somebody wants to talk about, obviously. But these are fasting retreats. And my workshops are usually 3 hours long, and they're filled with an element of embodied practices to really understand the different cycles and what they can hold, phases of the cycle, and what wisdom they can hold for us and what challenges they might bring. So in a group setting, there's exchange going on and we learn from each other, and women can just listen. There's so much like, whoa, okay, I'm not the only one who feels like this moments. Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Wow.
Jen had a quick question. I can see it.
Yeah, no, you know, you were talking about being aware of where you are in your cycle and stuff like that. And I had a lot of challenges growing up with my cycle. And I remember once I was dating this guy, and he's like, I remember him saying to me, "Are you on your cycle? Because you're acting like such a psycho." And I was like, what? I was so upset. And I said, you know what? He is never going to know when I'm on my cycle again. And I decided from that day on, you could not tell my mood swings. I was always pleasant and what have you and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, wait a minute. He was shocked. And when you mentioned that you worked with men, you have worked with men, but you primarily worked with women. I was curious, in what capacity did you work with men with this work? Because I think they need to be, a little bit more sensitive to this situation, because we are not necessarily in control of what's happened. This is a process that we have to go through. There are probably some women that would opt out before they're supposed to opt out. But I never, even though I had a lot of challenges with mine, I never hated having my menstrual cycle. I always thought it was a blessing. And I had to be on, I had a lot, like I said, a lot of issues, endometriosis and stuff like that. And I felt a little bit attacked when you said, do you know where you are in your cycle? And I made a conscious decision not to really worry about it, because I had been on the pill for a long time to treat a lot of the issues that I had, and for like 17 plus years. And this doctor once, I went to a homeopathic practitioner. She said, does your body even know what to do anymore for on your monthly cycle? I'm like, well, I don't know. So when she took me off of it, she said, no more pill. I said, okay, great. I decided I wasn't going to check. When she shows up, I'm going to have a party. When she doesn't, okay. And it leveled out, and now it comes every month as it's supposed to. And I'm just like, hey, how you doing? Let's do this. I don't freak out about it. So that's why I was like, oh, I don't know. But I do want to know about the men angle and how you work with them.
Jen, you said really two interesting things here. It's the way you said it. Oh, I don't worry about where I am in my cycle. It's not that. It's using our cycle as a tool to empower ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's once I know where I am, and just go with that energy that is coming from my body, not what everybody is different, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tool of empowerment, I find. So, but I like that, because sometimes I have women coming here and they say, oh, I've chosen not to know anymore. I understand you guys, but it's not about to worry or being so like, it's just a little tool actually also that helps to be in the present, in the moment. Where am I? And the other question you said, in which capacity I work with men. Sadly, I don't work with men yet on these talks. I work with men and see them for body work. But I had a very interesting, hopefully we're transitioning. I'm currently put a workshop offer out there to work with especially body work therapists, because if they know more about the menstrual cycle and the seasons and physically what happens in their bodies, just physically, and hormonal changes, they can also be a bit more aware of what possibly is going on with their clients. So this particular one I created for women only, but once I posted it in a group where a lot of massage therapists are in, the men started to talk. Yeah, and they were like, oh, what about us? And some of us need to know. And I'm thinking, yes, that's what we want. So I'd love, but it's for them to come forward. I can offer it on every corner, but they need to come forward.
Well, and it sounds like they did. I love that they reached out to you and were like, what about us? I'm like, oh, I find it so inspiring that there's men out there that are curious about it in like a loving, I want to understand capacity. I love that. I love knowing that. That just made my day.
It is comforting. But I guess for me, when I said I didn't want to know, I didn't want to be driven or controlled necessarily. I didn't want to be classified as a cycle because I'm having a cycle. And I guess when I could feel that I was in a rage zone, I would, because being a teacher and stuff like that, I needed to learn how to, I guess, control my emotions and not necessarily transfer what I was feeling. So I didn't pay attention to whether, and I didn't let it, I can't let it run my life as it relates to not being social, because when I'm a teacher, I have to show up. You know what I mean? So I guess from that perspective, I wasn't as cognizant of it, and maybe how I could have used it in that empowering way. I just decided to work with it. And I guess is what I did. I chose to work with the cycle and not let it stop me from doing what it is that I needed to do, and showing up like a level-headed human being, rather than someone who had just chopped off my head and I'm like, rah, at everyone, you know? I wish y'all could have seen that visual podcast, Emily. But yeah.
So hands in the air like a dragon.
Yes. So yeah, that's what I meant. But no, I think it's really important that we're talking about this, and I can't wait for you to get the men involved, because they do need to learn about it and understand that they need to be a bit more supportive, and they have daughters, you know, and stuff like that. Exactly. Really important for them to understand what's happening. My dad was the first person that I had to tell when I got my cycle. My mom wasn't home. You know, right. He was like, oh, okay. You know, like, good for you. That was it. He didn't know what else to do, you know? So men need to know about these things. Of course, yes. Yeah. So we'll take a quick break, Elevated Feminine Family, and we're going to come back with Diane and talk a little bit more, take a deeper dive into this menstrual cycle, maybe move into day ovulation, or who knows what's next. But we'll be right back really, really soon. Stay tuned. Hi there, I'm Jen, co-host of the Elevated Feminine podcast, where real women have real conversations. If there's a topic you're passionate about and want to share your views and ideas, then we want to hear from you. Send us an email at elevatedfeminine9@gmail.com. We can hardly wait to have a conversation with you. And we're back with the Elevated Feminine podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Nicole is here with me, and we also have the amazing and wonderful, oh, sorry, go ahead, Nicole, do your thing. Nicole. Don't you love that she still sings her name, everyone? I love that she still sings her name. Love it. And we have Diane in here, and she's talking about the menstrual cycle and how we can harness that power by knowing where we are in that cycle to help empower ourselves, and how we can use it to advance ourselves in the workplace. So Diane, tell us. We are intrigued. My whole work schedule is planned around my menstrual cycle. For me, it means in the nature of the work I'm doing, I know I can go for it and pack it all boom full around ovulation. My energy is really high. I'm kind of like Superwoman, right? I can do it all. Yeah, my speech is all flowing and it's great. It's really fantastic. So I know in my schedule, that goes in there, that goes in there, all goes in. If I had to do a presentation, or if I can choose to plan a workshop and I have the flexibility, it would be around my ovulation, around just a few days before or after, because I know it's just easy. Like, yeah. The week before my period, I am pacing myself. I leave more gaps in my schedule, in my work schedule. And like I said, the nature of my work, I have the flexibility. If you were working in an office or whatever the nature of your work is, the way I would then explore to navigate your energies is work is work. That's what you have to do. But maybe you take the social life a little back. Yeah, because that week is very different in our energy, what we can do and what we shouldn't do too much in general. Yes.
And if you were working on a creative project, for example, you can also use your cycle and listen to your inner creativity, usually the week after our bleed that corresponds to the outer season of spring, where everything is still fresh and everything is a little tender, but usually ideas come like young girls. We are full of bubbling ideas. Everything is coming up, and yeah, I want to do this, I want to do this, and I actually want to learn this, and bum 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 bum. So it's a good way to just take notes of all the ideas and not to follow through all of them. Then as we go further around ovulation again, we realize, oh, that can actually go. We scratch it out. This can go, and we come to a smaller list. And then the week before the period that corresponds to the outer season of autumn, we become our own editor. We become like really more actually closer to our inner power, and we say, ooh, this was a real shitty idea. That was the young me, the young girl. And we become a lot more clear, actually. And that's when we can follow through with more confidence and more focus.
Beautiful. And I was just wondering too, like, I don't know, maybe some of our listeners don't really know the sort of cycles, and like when do you start counting? I know kind of off topic for 2 seconds here, but just in case people don't really know how to start counting, like where do you start counting like day one of your cycle? Is it before, after bleed? And like, so that we can and then when does that ovulation phase? I know it's different for everybody typically, just in case there's people who don't really know.
Okay, good question. So the first day of my cycle is the first day of my bleed. And then we go like 28 days is around that. And then we go, and if my bleed was to come on day 29, then this is my first day again, and I had a 28-day cycle.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I then
sorry,
Nicole.
When is and then so like ovulation is somewhere in between there, right? Just for our listeners.
Yeah, so ovulation is about midway, day 14.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So that's great. Just in case there are people out there who weren't really sure how to pace that. So coming back to our conversation about sort of managing and navigating our cycle in the workplace, I'd be super curious to know.
Sorry.
Oh, good. And Diane, you can start whenever you're ready.
So I count the first day of my cycle with the bleed, with the blood arrival. So once I start bleeding, this is my first day of my cycle. And then ovulation is around day 14.
Okay.
Around day 14. A little different possibly for every woman, but yeah, roughly that mid-cycle.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So just in case there are some listeners who weren't really sure how to quantify that, I think that's super helpful. So let's bring it back to in the workplace and how, so when you're teaching women how to use their cycle to and feel empowered with it, what kind of, what would you be talking about? And you were talking about the seasons of the different weeks before and after and how they related to the season. So how does that translate now for us going into the workspace? What kind of work should we be doing during each of those phases, if we can, as best we can?
we obviously still do the same work, but I always say 1% kindness each day. 1% kindness each day. So if we go through really busy phases in our work, we need to come back to ourselves even more so. And like I said earlier, there are times in my cycle when I can really go for it. I can afford my estrogen is on the rise, estrogen is high, estrogen has got me. Yeah, I can afford to go for it. But even then, I cannot forget 1% kindness. So often, little tricky periods when they come on, I ask, okay, what happened in the first half of your cycle? Just because we think hormonally we can afford to be superwoman, sometimes it has a ripple effect. And if we don't look after ourselves each and every day of our cycle with 1% kindness, that can lead to a real energy depletion, and my bleed comes on with cramps because, hello, my body is making itself heard and known. You haven't looked after me. I'm not just your vehicle to take me from A to B. I am here to actually guide you.
Right.
Love that. That 1% kindness. I love that point that you made about even though you feel like you can do it, it's kind of like it just reminded me of why I stopped taking, like aspirin and Advil and things like that as much as possible. Because it's kind of, the estrogen almost seems to, the high estrogen levels almost seems to numb our sense of I don't want to say reality, but just like our sense of what's reasonable. And you're right, we do get into that. I can take it all on. We can do it all. And you work the long hours, or you take on the big projects or too many projects. And you're right, you do have that crash. I've been there too. And actually, I'm just realizing now, it's probably because I'm in that cycle where as soon as I'm like, because I think what happens is that I have that crash. I'm just having a aha moment right now, and I'm going to share it. So I had that crash just before, and then during I'm like wiped, and especially the first 3 days, there's no way I'm being productive those first 3 days. Absolutely not. I do my best, but absolutely not am I being productive those days. But you're right, because what happens is when I come back around, then I'm like, okay, get as much done as I can because I have to do it while I can because there's that dip. But it's interesting that you said that, because I'm like, so no, I'm actually perpetuating that dip by doing exactly that. And if I would just balance my workload and my time, then maybe I wouldn't have that dip in the first place. So I love that.
Exactly, Nicole. And then I give you another maybe thought you could contemplate. I strongly believe at least one day, maybe 2 or 3, but at least one day during our cycle. For some women, it is actually when they are bleeding. For some women, it is just before the period is arriving. Take one day completely off. No matter what is happening, take it off. So sometimes the pain then makes it known, I can't move. And we call in sick, right? That's not what it is about. We can't allow it to let it go to that space. We need to listen to our bodies. And I believe if us women were allowed officially to do that, and in some countries, I believe it's already officially allowed, we would be much more productive. Because if we have this 1 or 2 days of real rest, we come out so much more recharged and so much more, just positive. That if we women are by nature cyclic, we are cyclic by nature. Men not so much. Well, they have a short cycle every 15 minutes, but in general, they are linear creatures. So they can go with the Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday rest. Okay, works for them. It doesn't really work for us. I'd rather have the possibility to have more space around my bleed, but maybe in the first half of my cycle, I can work 6 days therefore.
Right.
So the outer world is not so much made up for us women, right?
Yes. Ah, I love that. I'm totally going to do that and give myself permission. I love this. Like, aha, I hope somebody else out there is just hearing what I'm reflecting on and going, oh, me too. And if that's you, let's make a vow that we're going to take an intentional rest day just around when the bleed starts, because I'm going to adopt that and see how it works. I'm going to test it out because I love that. Plus, I love resting. I love sleep so much.
And totally give yourself permission at the time of your cycle that is right for you. Yeah.
I love that.
And completely check out from the outer world. Again, nature, Mother Nature is doing it, showing us how to do it. Nothing is ever fully, there's a lot happening while it seems there's nothing happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Gosh, it sounds great. Day off.
Jen, yeah, I saw the look in your face was kind of, I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, I have tried. I did make a concerted effort at one point in time to say, okay, this is going to be my day. I'm not doing any classes or teaching anything on this particular day, regardless. And it just didn't work out.
Guess that brings us back to our boundaries conversation.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's not like the entire day is taken up with teaching or anything. So it's like maybe like an hour. So then I have like the rest of the day. And that was yesterday for me. Yesterday, the rest of the day was just about relaxation. Because I didn't really feel like I had the energy to do much more. And that was like the second day of my cycle. And I was just like, I couldn't cope. So I pretty much was like on the couch for the majority of the day. And it was fine. I did not feel any guilt either.
Exactly. Yes.
Part. Yeah. Feel guilty.
I think that's one thing I love so much about teaching yoga and doing wellness stuff is that a lot of times, you know, that 1 hour, you're still working in the sense you're still holding space, but the genuine benefit I feel of doing healing work and yoga and, you know, energy work is that you also get, even if it's a smaller dose, you still get the benefit of it. Whereas I feel like if we go to work and like a 9 to 5, it's not quite the same effect. If you go in for an hour into an office versus going into an hour of teaching Pilates or yoga or doing maybe even massage, Diane, I don't know if that feels for you, but definitely for me, like energy work and stuff. Yeah, you're still holding space and that still takes energy, but it's a different kind of energy. There's, you know, like the buffer of rejuvenation that you're getting a benefit from it simultaneously. So that's nice.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah,
they should make that. If anyone's listening, let's see if we can't get that one mandatory day.
Yeah, with one day a month, like you said.
At least that's it. You know what I mean?
Maybe the following week we can work 6. We'll just shift the work week over.
No, not even necessarily that. If we do take our resting time, we come out more productive.
True. I'm so excited to test this out, Diane. I'm really excited. I'm going to let you know how it goes.
Please do.
Because we're coming up to mine. So I'm like, oh, good. My rest day is coming. And then it would be something to look forward to.
Oh, gosh, that's great.
Awesome. So this is so good. So fascinating and interesting. I've only really started delving into menstrual cycles and how we can make our work life and life work with our bodies and the cyclic pattern that you were talking about. So I'm super excited to talk more about how you do it in your practice and just sharing maybe some tidbits of information and some takeaways for our listeners. But before that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Diane is going to come talk to us about her programs and her work and how, if you're interested in working with her, how you can do that. But also she's going to give us a couple of quick tips. And although you've kind of given us a couple nuggets already, so that feels good too. So we'll be back in a short minute.
Hi there, I'm Jen, co-host of the Elevated Feminine podcast, where real women have real conversations. If there's a topic you are passionate about and want to share your views and ideas, then we want to hear from you. Send us an email at elevatedfeminine9@gmail.com. We can hardly wait to have a conversation with you.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Elevated Feminine podcast. You have your hosts here. I'm Nicole, and we have Jen. And we're here talking to Diane about her fascinating work in the realm of body work and yoga, and using our menstrual cycles in a way that empowers us in our lives and in the workforce. So, Diane, I would love to know, I mean, like you mentioned, some of us have more flexible schedules. As entrepreneurs, for the most part, our schedules are pretty flexible and we have that freedom. But what about people in the workplace? Like you said, we have to work. So that's kind of set in stone for a lot of us. How about, can you give us some tips on how we can work with our cycle in our home life and in our life outside of work? Because that is more manageable for a broader variety of people. And then that way, at least there's one area that we're taking care of, even if we can't carry it over to the workplace. Can you give us some tips and some tricks on how to use our cycles to maximize ourselves?
I think we can always carry it out into any workplace if we take care of that knowing in our home life. So if I'm working with menstrual cycle awareness in my home life, my moods won't maybe go like, wow, the week before my period, and I don't have to negotiate anything in my head with my boss, because I am approaching my work already different. So home life, again, it depends. Women who live on their own, is very different to navigate this knowing than women surrounded by family members or just a partner. I often mention this, and it might be familiar to some of you. Just if you think of yourself, if you are living with a partner or family members, the week you come out of your bleed, you go, good morning, everyone. What would everybody like to have for breakfast? You want this, you want it. I'm doing it. No worries. We coming into mid-cycle, the week around ovulation, we become even more superwoman. Oh, just tell me what kind of egg, scrambled, poached, boiled, how many minutes? Yep, I'm doing it all. Don't worry, I do the washing up too. The week before our period, it's a whole different scenario. You want breakfast? Do it yourself, right? It's like this. So why can we not make it a little bit of a change here? And I think you mentioned it earlier, involving the men. How can I involve the men or other family members? I have a clock up in my kitchen and I move the handle. And in this case, my teenage son, actually, he doesn't really need to know the clock. He knows me so well by my moods. He knows exactly where I am in my cycle. And he also knows where his teachers are. He comes home from school and says, yeah, oh, Miss So-and-so, for sure she was on her cycle. Her mood was off the roof. I'm not kidding you. A week later, how was it? How was your day? Oh, she was in a good mood. She is out of it. Yeah, he knows very well. But my son knows also, okay, Mom, I get it. I'm doing the hoovering. I mean, he's pretty well trained in house chores anyway. but he has already that understanding that this is mom's time, I need to step up. And for a 13-year-old teenage boy, I think I've done pretty well for the future women who come in contact with him, right? Yes. Yeah, so now if it's a partner, you have that clock, whatever you make yourself, create it, have it up, move that handle. Your partner learns to understand exactly this. Okay, she can do it for me now. She is willing to do it, but I need to step up at certain times in the cycle. So there can be more harmony in our home life. And if that harmony is existing in our home life, it makes our outer life a little easier.
So true. So true. I love that so much. And maybe for our listeners too, is do you have some advice or tips on how to have that conversation with your partner? Kids is a little bit easier because they seem more open, receptive, but is there, like the men in our lives, a lot of them, a vast majority of them are, I mean, a lot of us women too are completely oblivious to, like the ebb and flow of the cycle. But do you have any tips, like if you're uncomfortable having that conversation, because our society also, we were taught to hide it, right? So do you have any tips on how, if somebody's feeling a little bit uncomfortable about talking about it, how they can maybe regulate that within themselves?
By educating themselves. It starts with myself. That's why I'm saying this knowledge is so empowering. It is empowering by getting to know myself better. Once I get to know myself better, I can share the knowledge with my partner. If I don't know myself too well and I can't really understand why I'm so grumpy and angry, it's a bit more difficult. So the work really starts with ourselves. And then we start the conversation by the obvious. Biologically, we are just different creatures. Our hormones are fluctuating differently, and they make us work function very different.
So is there a time in your cycle that you would recommend being the best time to have that conversation and the most empowering?
Love the question, Nicole. Yes. Yes, the first half of our cycle. And because if the partner doesn't quite react how we wish for him to react, we can take it, right? We are superwomen, right? It's okay. We have a lot of understanding. If I leave that conversation to the first week of my cycle and my partner kind of rolls his eyes, hell breaks loose already, right? That ticks me off and here we go. So that's not great. And this goes for any conversation I'm having with my partner. If it's something really deeper, I let it stay with me and I approach this conversation in the first half of my cycle when I am a lot more open to hearing whatever needs to be said from his side.
Beautiful. I love that. And I suppose too, just like translating that into the business realm too, the same would be true for having those difficult conversations with your boss or with fellow coworkers and things like that, if you can delay them.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely, Nicole. Yeah. Like, for example, if, like you say, if you wanted to ask for a pay rise, do it in the right time of your cycle, because you are way more open to see the picture, how the conversation flows. Yeah, if you can, always work with your cycle.
Beautiful. I love that. So if you're looking for a raise, everybody, time to learn your cycle, fellow women out there who are still mensing. And on that note, though, why don't you, Diane, a great way for us to learn how our bodies are working is to do some work with you. And so why don't you share some of your offerings that you have around not just the menstrual cycle education, but all of your offerings, because I know you have a variety of workshops and retreats and things like that. So why don't you tell everybody how, if people want to work with you, how they can work with you?
Yeah, we haven't had much time in this one. Hopefully we might see each other again. Sure. Because yeah, I don't only approach how I can use my menstrual cycle in my home life and work life, but also how I'm nourishing my body with food. It's very much linked to my menstrual cycle. So with that in mind, and also difficulties how to manage certain symptoms and issues in the body, I became a fasting guide, and I'm currently offering every quarter or so, usually once a quarter actually, an online partial fasting week. And I invite everybody who would love to know a little bit more about fasting to this 1 week workshop. Not workshop, is, how do you call it?
Like a digital retreat, it sounds like.
No, not so much a retreat either, because maybe yes, Nicole. Maybe something in between a workshop and a retreat. I don't know what's in between.
We'll make a name for it.
Yeah. So I have this available online, and then I am available. I've been asked different times from yoga studios actually around the world. I traveled a little bit to offer it's a 3-hour workshop where we talk about menstrual cycle awareness. I call it Nurture Your Wise Woman.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's great. So people can work with you in your fasting retreats, with air quotes retreats, and then also these beautiful workshops. And where are you in the world right now, so that if people are near you, they can come see you in person?
I'm in London in the UK.
Beautiful. So if you're wanting to travel, or if you're already in the UK, I'm pretty close. I might come see you.
Yay, Nicole. But I share something here right now. It's not out there yet, but I think by the time this is out, it will be out. I have a 1 week fasting wandering retreat coming up in the north of England, in Cumbria. Okay. I'm really excited about this. I used to have these retreats, but a shorter version of it, less scary for people. But this time I went for it. Let's face our fears, right?
And what month are you doing that in?
In the north of England, Cumbria.
But what month? When are you doing it?
Sorry, April. In April
2024.
Yes.
Awesome. That's so exciting. Well, Diane, thank you. We'll share with everybody how they can get a hold of you, but what platform do you predominantly use? You predominantly use Instagram, Facebook. How can people come find you and follow you?
Instagram.
Okay, cool. And we'll share that with everybody in the description. If you want to get in touch with Diane and find out how you can get a hold of her, how you can attend one of her workshops, how you can invite her to your yoga studio to do these workshops for your community, I think that would be brilliant. Traveling, she's a traveler just like me. That's how we met. We went to Costa Rica to do our yoga teacher training together over 10 years ago. So Diane, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for sharing all of your information, your wisdom, and this insight into what for a lot of us is a mystery of the human body, of the female human body. A lot of us complete mystery.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It was a pleasure chatting to you both. It was really, really nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we'll have to have you back to talk about fasting and to talk about your menstrual cycle. And we have a lot of different episodes that we can make with Diane, so we'll have to have her back.
Yes,
I'd
sure.
love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. We love you. Sending you lots of love from Jenn in Barbados, me here in France, all the way to you in the UK. And to all of our listeners, all three of us are sending you lots of love. Thank you so much for joining us today on another amazing and insightful episode of the Elevated Feminine podcast, where we're real women having real conversations. See you next time.